just because of the kind of people around the table and their passion for what they're doing here in Churchill and across the city and across the community. I have been really grappling with what to do with respect to my time in the Senate, and I'm very happy to announce that I'm going to run for a third term in the Senate. It's an unusual decision, and as Ann and I worked through it really mostly since the midterms, she pointed out one of the reasons it's hard is it's an 8-year decision. Most of the decisions you make in your life, they're not 8-year decisions. They're like for next year or for next week. I make decisions about tomorrow sometimes, but a Senate term is 2 years of campaigning and then 6 years of serving, and you got to really approach it carefully. Here's why, in conversations with friends and especially with Ann and my family, I've decided to run for a third term. I'm a servant. I love Virginia. I'm proud of what I've done. I got a whole lot more I want to do. So those are the 4 reasons. I'm a servant. I was raised by parents who really taught me to be happy if you do something good for others. And Ann was raised by parents in a very different environment than mine, but who pretty much imparted the same lesson on her. So beginning in my law school years, where I took time off to go work with Missionaries Honduras, then a civil rights career here, and then now in my 29th year in office, local, state, and federal, what makes me happy is to try to help other people. And so many people have helped me. It's a reciprocal thing. It's a beautiful line in the song Forever Young. Always do for others and let others do for you. So many have done for me. It makes me happy to serve others. But not in the abstract. I love Virginia. I moved here in 1984. I only knew one person. But anywhere in this state, including places that don't even vote for me, I've got wonderful friends. And the ability to, after 29 years, to go anywhere and always find somebody who I know, somebody who I can dialogue with, somebody who will inspire me, just like these young people do, somebody whose creativity in tackling a local challenge makes me think, I can apply that somewhere else. It's just endlessly validating and energizing to get around the state and be with people. I just find it nonstop, and not just people. I mean, we hike the trails and cycle the paths and canoe the streams and camp in the mountains. Both our natural bounty and our human bounty are remarkable. And so, loving to serve, you want to serve some particular folks, and the 8+ million Virginians are just exactly the kind of people I want to serve. Virginians have a phrase that I had never heard till I came here, and that's this, and it's usually more in rural Virginia, but you finish an interaction with them and they say, appreciate you. and they mean it. They mean it. The number of people that tell you appreciate you, even if appreciate you, I'm not voting for you, but I appreciate you. The number of people who tell you that and mean it, that phrase appreciate you just seems to me to sum up kind of who Virginians are. Third thing is, proud of what I've done. The Senate is frustrating. Things don't move fast. There's plenty of times where, oh my gosh, it moves too slow. But I've been in the Senate about 10 years now, and whether it's finally seeing the silver line to Dulles done, getting the State Department training facility built down in Southside, which was a huge economic development thing, raising the tobacco age to 21, getting the Virginia tribes recognized, providing funding for HBCUs, doing unglamorous things like providing some overflow funding in Richmond, Lynchburg, and Alexandria. We saved the Affordable Care Act by 1 vote in 2017. That will always be maybe the moment in politics I'll remember the most. 30 million people's health insurance was on the line, and it was a 1 voter. And if I hadn't run in 2012, it would have gone the other way. And the opportunity to do good, and my healing, and maybe particularly in the last couple of years when we've really hit stride, gun safety, infrastructure, chips and investment, marriage equality, fighting for health care. I think we've hit stride. I think I'm getting better at it, because it's a weird place, the Senate. You have to learn to get better at it. But that's something, I'm just proud of what we've done. But man, I got more I want to do. I got to be honest and look in the mirror and say, have I done everything I wanted to get done? And the answer is, I haven't. I mean, you heard inside, there's a lot of priorities that are on the table. How do we make housing better? We talked a lot about workforce. really focused on this issue of Virginia's and America's workforce. We are really, really low unemployment right now. And everywhere I go in the Commonwealth, could be a hospital, could be a school, could be this, can't hire people. Can't hire people. How are we going to solve this issue? This is something as a member of the Health, Education, Labor, Pension Committee I'm really focused on. And it's going to be a combination of things. We have to do more career and technical training. My dad was a welder. We're getting better at restoring careers and trades, but we got to do even more. We're going to have to do comprehensive immigration reform. That's the one undone thing. We haven't done it since 1986. If we're not doing an immigration reform bill that's really focused on the workforce, then we're not going to have the workforce that we need to have an economy that's as productive as it can be for everybody. We're going to have to do more high-quality, affordable child care. We got more than 1 million people out of the workforce now who want to be in the workforce, and they have skills. They'd be great in the workforce, but they can't find affordable, high-quality child care. So on my to-do list, workforce issues are very, very high, and it's a mixture of things. Healthcare issues are high. We've been able to bring down prescription drug costs for seniors, but what about for folks who aren't seniors? The insurance companies in Virginia that have been filing on the exchange, premiums are going down this year, but they're still too high. So we have to make healthcare more affordable. We have to deal with some inequities like maternal disparities in maternal health between African American women and others. We got to make sure women can make their own reproductive health decisions without government needlessly in their way. I have long COVID. It's mild. It's not getting in my way, but it is noticeable enough that I know there are people who are really struggling with this, and millions of people. We've got to do better in terms of finding treatments and cures and therapies for the millions of Americans who are going to be dealing with this for a very long time. In the national security space, I'm very fortunate to be on both the Armed Services and the Foreign Relations Committees. The role of America in the world matters. Some of you know because I was a missionary in Central America, if you've ever lived outside the U.S., you kind of realize, wow, the U.S. is really important elsewhere. If you haven't, you can kind of take for granted or maybe not see the tremendous influence that we have all around the world. I'm proud to be a supporter of what the Biden administration has done with respect to this illegal invasion in Ukraine, because one of the reasons that invasion happened was that Putin believed he could illegally invade another democracy, and the democracies in the world wouldn't stand up. He thought we didn't have the backbone, we didn't have the unity, we didn't have the resolve, we wouldn't stand up for our own way of life, small d democracies. And he was wrong, because we linked arms. And we said, even though it's a sacrifice, democracies are worth battling for. And the ability to focus on important matters of war, peace, and diplomacy, but also to take care of troops and take care of veterans and take care of military families is a continuous challenge. So again, whether it's civil rights or workforce or healthcare access or the role of democracies in a world where frankly democracies are under assault by dictators at home and abroad in a way that has not been the case during my lifetime, I feel like I have so much more to do. So it's not a decision that I reached lightly. I don't make decisions lightly, and because it's an 8-year decision, it was something that we really needed to think through. But I think it was Abraham Lincoln says, "I'm a slow walker, but when I do walk, I don't turn back." Having made the decision, I'm all in. I'm ready to run very, very vigorously. I'm ready to keep serving very vigorously, and I appreciate some people were pretty patient with me as I was making my decision, and I really appreciate that. But anyway, to you and my family and to my staff who are wonderful, and to some of my friends here in my hometown, thanks for the support that you've given me along the way, and I'm glad to open it up and take questions.
Senator Kaine, how recently did you make this decision? Did you wake up this morning and make the final decision? I know you've been laboring over for some time. And then just maybe if you can enlighten us in how much encouragement, I don't want to use the word pressure, you may have gotten from Senator Schumer concerned about what the map is going to look like in 2024 for Democrats.
My colleagues have been the Democratic Senate colleagues, including Leader Schumer, have been good at encouraging but knowing, hey, it's a hard decision. You got to make it on your own. So they both encouraged but gave me space and time. I remember telling Chuck at one point, "Well, I'm going to decide." He goes, "Don't rush." I think he felt like you need some time to work it through. Ann gave me a good piece of advice. She said, try to come to a resolve point in your mind and then live with it for about a week and find out if you're waking up second guessing it or not. And if you, after a number of days, you're not second guessing it, then it's the right call. And I actually kind of, what I did is I kind of summarized in my head the best reasons to start a new chapter in life and the best reasons to continue a chapter. And then I picked a Bible verse for each one. And then instead of thinking about the reasons, I just drove around the state. I was in Roanoke last week and kind of thinking about which of these two verses like it most resonates with me right now. And one, they're both really wise, but one resonated with me more than the other. So I probably kind of had a sense of it by about last Wednesday or Thursday, but I needed the time to let it sit and make sure that I wasn't second guessing it.
Senator, what
Kaine.
were the verses? And also,
Yep.
how in the world did you keep the secret? Who knew? Just your wife?
So the open a new chapter verse was Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. It's a very wise phrase. It was written 2,500 years ago, and there's a reason we still read it. The continue the chapter verse was from Galatians. Do not grow weary in doing good, you will reap a great harvest if you do not give up. Now both of those are equally wise, right? Both of those really have wisdom, but like which one applies right now in my life? And as I, again, kind of summarized them in wisdom rather than in the T-chart of pluses and minuses, I found myself gravitating toward Galatians rather than Ecclesiastes. How did I keep a secret?
Well, I think you genuinely sat with the decision, so
Yeah.
you didn't tell your staff until 2 days ago.
Yeah, I told 3 staffers 2 days ago, and I told my staff at 9 o'clock last night. But yeah, I think Ann's advice of make a decision, but then rest with it enough to know that you're not waking up in the middle of the night thinking, wait a minute, do I really want to do that? So
Senator Kaine.
Senator Kaine, I guess my question is, as the wife of a Green Beret, I know that it's not just him serving, right? How are you and your children feeling about, were you leaning towards Ecclesiastes versus Galatians?
Well, great question. As a Virginian, I'm all in. We need this happy warrior for democracy and good government. And as a wife, I really wanted him to do what was best for him, and I did recognize how hard it is to make a decision about those years out. And so I'm glad he took the time, but I'm thrilled that he's come to a place. This job has given him great joy in service. I'm excited to watch the next 8 years if Virginians give him that opportunity.
Senator,
Sorry, specifically asked you to say?
no, he didn't. But I don't think he and his team, they know me pretty well, and they probably have the sense of this guy's going to make his own mind up. But my Senate Democratic colleagues did. But frankly, the more persuasive, in addition to Ann and the kids, just interactions like we were doing events this week for MLK events in Roanoke, the number of people who had read a column by my longtime friend and nemesis Jeff Shapiro that told them all that I was trying to weigh what to do. The number of people who read that and then said, hey, do what you think's right. But if I had to vote, here's what that matters more to me than what I love my Senate colleagues. What matters more to me is what people around here are saying.
Senator, you once said that after President Obama encouraged you to run once Webb got out, over time you said that you wanted to sort of take John Warner's 30 years as your sort of North Star. Has anything changed about that sort of time frame? What was the other side of the equation here as you deliberated?
Andrew, so in 2024, it will be 30 years. It will be 30 years since I ran my city council race in 1994. So John Warner did 30 years, all in the Senate. I put in a lot of time, as a city councilman, mayor, lieutenant governor, and governor. And I'll just say, when I ran for lieutenant governor, in 2000, I knew it was a 9-year effort, because if successful and I won for LG, then I must forever be a 9-year effort. Making that decision, I really weighed, 9 years, what's going to go on in my life? When I ran for the Senate in 2012, it's at least an 8-year decision. Grappling with an 8-year decision at age 64 is different than at age 53 or 42, right? It's just a different calculation. You know things about yourself. Life has changed. So it just was important to not do it on autopilot, you know, but really think through what's the greater good. And there were really good arguments, you know, both ways. But again, once I make a decision, I want to make it and be resolved in it. And I feel very, very excited to just fire it up, you know, get the old team back together. So,
Governor,
Senator Kaine,
you
yeah,
anticipating that President Biden will run for re-election?
I am.
He'll carry Virginia. How are you handicapping your party's chances to control the Senate with Democrats defending 23 and 30?
So yeah, so let me answer Jeff's question, but begin by saying I have no intel. So I have zero intel about President Biden's plan. So this will just be all my intuition. My intuition is, yeah, he'll run again. And I think if he does run again, he has a very good chance of winning Virginia. Of course, I know that just like I'm taking nothing for granted, I'm assuming I'm going to have a hard race. I'm sure he would feel the same. The Senate dynamic in 24 is a challenging dynamic. You know, unlike the House, where since everybody's up every election, it's always kind of what's the national dynamic like? The Senate dynamic, it's always a function of the national mood plus the map. And we do have a tough map in 24 because I think out of the 33, 34 seats, we're defending 2/3, and the places where we're playing offense are not necessarily the most favorable territory for them. So, you know, I in thinking about serving for the next 8 years, well, what's the chance that I might be in minority? That's a significant chance. We got a Republican House now. We'll have to learn that reality. But I'll tell you one thing, Jeff, that it just tells you how closely divided our nation is. I've been in the Senate for 10 years, and I have been in with 2 Democratic houses, 2 Republican houses, a Republican House and a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, 2 Democratic presidents and 1 Republican president, and that's just in 10 years. So I've seen virtually every way that deck can be shuffled, and I think while the world will always throw surprises at us, I don't think I'm going to be surprised because I've been in the body in the 10 years sort of under every combination.
Senator Kaine, you mentioned that the Senate can at times be a frustrating place. I think that's an understatement. But you also said that you want to see things like immigration reform get done. These really big, challenging questions that you guys have dealt with for a long time and haven't been able to get over the finish line. Does the current partisan breakdown with the House and the Senate weigh on you at all? And did it weigh on you as you made this decision?
It actually didn't. I mean, it didn't weigh on my decision. I'm thinking about it a lot. Like, and I'm always too optimistic about everything. Warner always says that to me. You're too optimistic about everything, and I always say, and that just means that Virginia senators are on average right at the national average. So there's a Republican House, but I'm not going to give up on that. We might get some things done. So let me tell you a couple of things where I think there's a possibility. Immigration reform, as hard as that seems, because it's been a third rail, and I had the sobering experience of doing the bill in 2013 and feeling like, okay, we're right on the verge of nothing happening. The unemployment rate is so low that employers everywhere, every hospital, every school system, the Farm Bureau, the general contractors, the Chamber of Commerce, they're starting to knock on our doors and say, do some immigration reform. So an immigration reform bill that's really focused on the workforce, I think that has some possibility, even with the partisan division. I think mental health needs. Coming out of COVID, we don't have enough mental health providers. That was a function of a feature of our discussion on the side. That's not a partisan issue. Opioid addiction and overdoses, it was dropping in some really good ways before COVID. We had figured out some strategies to undertake, and overdose deaths were coming down. But then COVID isolated everybody. So much of addiction is a disease of isolation. You isolate people more, it gets worse. Okay, addictions, deaths spike back up. But I know what my Republican colleagues are hearing in the states that they represent, and they're hearing, hey, this is a big problem. And whether it's impounding more fentanyl at the border or more prevention and treatment programs here, you got to be able to find something. And I can think through career and technical education. I have a bill to have Pell Grants be able to be used for career and technical education. It's got 65 co-sponsors in the Senate. For some quirky reasons, it hasn't yet moved, but it's completely nonpartisan, and it speaks to this workforce need right now. So, is it going to be tough for the next couple of years? Yes, it will be. I don't imagine we're going to have the the run of big legislation getting signed over in the Oval Office that maybe we had particularly in the last year, but are there meaningful things that can be done and done in a bipartisan way? I believe so.
Governor, what's your take on Governor Youngkin's decision to kill off Ford plant, claiming it's a Chinese communist Chinese?
Yeah, Jeff, I really think the kind of the factual statement that this Ford plant was too connected to China, that you just got to really dig into that. You know, because if there was some legitimate security concerns, you know, you got to take those concerns seriously. But I don't know. What I know is Danville needs economic development, and the community has put so much into Berry Hill. Back to the time when Mark and I were governor, I'll always remember the second saddest day I had as governor was an Easter Monday where I went down to speak to the Ford employees in Norfolk whose plant had just been closed. They had made F-150s at that plant for decades, and the auto industry at the time was such that they needed to centralize down the production of F-150 trucks, and so the Norfolk plant was closed. And we went to Detroit to try to talk them out of it, and yet it closed. And we worked with people to find them new jobs. So the prospect of Ford coming to Virginia to open a new plant in a green energy sector that's like really cool that we need to be the lead of, that's a great opportunity. But you know, you got to dig in and figure out about this the security rationale, and I haven't done that.
Thanks. We have time for one more question.
Senator, you know that better than others that your term limited as governor. Do you think Governor Youngkin could have the behavior for Senate challenger or even a presidential candidate?
I don't want to put words in his mouth. I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that Governor Youngkin is unaware of the fact that nobody's ever left early. There's something interesting about the one-term governorship, and that it's you don't leave early. Now, again, if to run for president, that would be one thing. But people don't leave early for other opportunities. You do your 4 years, pedal to the metal, and then keep on going. So, could he be? I assume anybody could run against me because it's an honor to represent Virginia in the Senate. But I don't want to put words in his mouth. All right. Thank you all so much. Really good being with you today.
Thanks.